Hello everybody, this is GeneralJannis, and today we are looking at top placing death card lists for 2024, the lists that have been doing well, trying to analyze and try to present what constitutes a good death card list in the current meta, looking at therefore what is the meta for 2000 points for death card. So today, the 28th of March, been a busy week for me. 25th of March is the Greek National Day, where we have the big military parade in Athens. I don't live in Greece anymore, but I try to watch it on television, and you can see the Greek Imperial Guard, the Presidential Guard, let's say, parading there. And I don't know if Warhammer should adopt this type of uniform for some of its units, and then you see an M113, sorry, a Rhino, sorry, an M113 transport vehicle with Greek colors there. But then the next day, the 26th of March, Greece had a very important football game, and we lost out on being on Euro 24. So lots of ups and downs. But in this video, from my patron Gilles Mellet, he asked to get some more info on Mortarion. I will be doing that subsequently, but it would be interesting as well to review the list of his Belgian mate Liam, who finished 10th at the World Championship, and how can this list be competitive and so on. So while I was analyzing this, I was just thinking what are typical top placing death card lists. So in this, I'm analyzing 10 lists that have been ending top 3 finishes in Grand Tournament events, and of course I will also be looking at Liam's 10th place World Championship list. The data source for the top 3 finish lists comes from 40k Stats Gunhammer. So starting off by looking at 10 top Grand Tournament placing lists for Death Card in 2024. This is pre and post the point changes that we've seen. So some of these lists are a bit in the beginning of the year where we didn't have the point hikes. And here I try to illustrate this with this table. So we have the columns. Each column is one list, trying to see what is common and uncommon between the lists. And we start here, let's say in the first block we have the characters, and we see very high prevalence of Biologus Putrefier. 2 or 3 is quite similar, quite usual in these lists. We also have his companion Foul Blightspawn, the combination of Biologus Putrefier and Foul Blightspawn giving fight first to Plague Marines, and with the Biologus Putrefier critical hits on 5s and a lot of buffs and synergies there for a lot of the weapons. This is a very strong combo, and we see that in most of these lists here. Typhus is quite usual as well. Half the lists have Typhus, as well as Mortarion. Half of the lists include Mortarion, but more often, as often we have him or we don't have him in the list. And then we have some other characters. We have Lord of Ireland a little bit. We have some sorcerers in Terminator armor, interestingly enough. And for one of the lists, we have 3 demon princes there. That's quite an unusual build. More of the others are more similar, as we'll come to now. And Taliman, only one Taliman. And Taliman, I think we should have more Taliman there. If we look at the battle line, our Plague Marines, this is a very, very usual, and this is, let's say, very big part of all the meta competitive lists for Death Card right now. We have a lot of Plague Marines typically. So between 20-30 Plague Marines, usually some 10-man squads. You see, for example, list 1, we have two big squads of Plague Marines and then 2 smaller squad of Plague Marines. Some other lists we only have small squads of Plague Marines, but typically they have at least 1 big squad of Plague Marines. So Plague Marines, a very big part and a very the mainstay of Death Guard lists at the moment. Transports, equally important. We have a lot of Rhinos going on. 3 Rhinos or 2 Rhinos typically. One of the lists doesn't have Plague Marines or Rhinos, is the list with the Demon Princes. And one of the lists doesn't have Rhinos but has a lot of Plague Marines, but there he's using the Land Raiders instead. That could also be an interesting analysis to see Land Raider, is that compared to a Rhino, because how does that compare? Because the Rhino doesn't offer so much shooting, and the Land Raider can deliver a charge faster, but it's more expensive. But then it can provide some fire support. So I'll probably take a look at that. If we then look at another constituent of the list, the other vehicles typically used, we see a lot of Plaguebear scrollers around the list, 2 to 3 in the list that take them in with or without, in combination with Brigands, War Dog Brigands. We see a lot of lists taking 2 or 3 Brigands, and sometimes they take, for example, list 7. We have 3 Plaguebear scrollers and 3 Brigands as list 10. So a lot of combinations here with both Plaguebear scrollers and Brigands. The Brigands, with the demon spears, they can be really good against vehicles. The Plaguebear scrollers, they have good shooting against not so much against the heavier vehicles, but also again more against infantry. So they could be complementing each other. We also see some Predator Destructors, so they are cheaper now, 130 points instead of the 180 points for the Plaguebear scrollers. Some of the lists have Predator Destructors, and those are quite nice against infantry. I'll show you in a bit some of the data there. And we see also some Foetid Bloatdrones. The Foetid Bloatdrones are only 90 points now. So a few of the lists that they have Foetid Bloatdrones, typically with speeders for the Overwatch. And we see one of the lists, only list 5 here, it has Foetid Bloatdrones with the mower that was so strong in the 9th edition. And one of the lists has some Hellbrutes, not so typical, not so oftenly used, the Hellbrutes, but also probably worth an analysis soon. If we look at other infantry apart from the Plague Marines, then we see quite often that people are using 10 Cultists, 50 points, a cheap objective holder, and they have the scout move, so that's quite handy. And then we have the Deathshroud. I analyzed the Deathshroud in my previous video, so our strongest Terminator, half the list, let's say, typically can take 6 Deathshroud. One of the lists has 3 times 3 Deathshroud. 2 of the lists, they have one big squad of 6 Deathshroud. In that case, probably Typhus or Lord of Ireland is taking charge of the Deathshroud. But it's interesting, in some of the lists where there is no Terminators, we still have Typhus, and probably in those lists he has to go alone. That's quite interesting. And then allies from the demons to complete the list. Oh yeah, and by the way, only one list with Poxwalkers, and that's the list where it doesn't have any Plague Marines at all. And then finally, demon allies seem to be very important for competitive death card. At least the Nurglings, nearly all the lists, they are utilizing 2 minimum squads of Nurglings, 1 to 3, typically 2 Nurgling bases to have the presence and do secondary actions and take secondary points. Beast of Nurgle in one list, and then the special list without the Plague Marines. Here we have the Great and Clean one and a Soul Grinder. This is quite a different build, but all the others, as you can see, more or less centered around the same theme. So this is another. This table summarizes a bit how often we see various units in the list and how the average or number taken of the certain unit types. And let's say a recipe for a typical Death Card competitive list. The main body is the Plague Marines with Rhinos, Biologus Purifier, and Foul Blightspawn, as we saw across multiple lists. Typically, the Plague Marines are equipped with heavy plague weapons, meltas and spewers, and the odd blight launcher here and there. So the spewers, as we also saw in the torrent weapon review I did, meltas for short range, coming out of the Rhino, shooting at some vehicle, charging with the heavy plague weapons, with Biologus Purifier, the buffs, the grenades, lethal hits on 5s, different stratagems that can give us more critical hits, sustained hits, and etc. This is a very strong Death Star, let's say, of the Plague Marines. And this is really a mainstay of most of the lists. Then we see, as I said, the Plaguebear Scroller, Brigands, or Predator Destructor, and or in a combination, Mortarion or not to include. That seems like that's 2 varieties of lists. Typhus is quite often used. Cultists with the Deathshroud, as we say. Foetid Bloatdrones, a fast way to spread the contagion ahead. probably in combination to spread the -1 save contagion. And the Nurglings, 90% of the list, typically 2 bases taken. And the notable absentees here, the Blightlord Terminators, nowhere to be seen, eclipsed by the Deathshroud and the Plague Marines in this current meta. The Mephitic Blightholder, not strong enough compared to a Brigand and the Plague Bear Scroller, and Poxwalkers, the Cultists there with the Scout move, probably a better move, but it would be nice to have more Poxwalkers in the competitive lists. And happy to finally be able to use a pie chart diagram in my videos. This is the typical, let's say if we are analyzing the recipe of a death card competitive list, how much points are allocated to different areas. This is just a basic example here. So if we are assuming we are using 25 Plague Marines with 2 Biologus Purifiers, 2 Foul Blightspawns and 2 Rhinos, that's already 800 points. If you want, of course, to add more Plague Marines and more Rhinos and etc., then you would be using 900,000 points or 900 to 1,000 points on this. The Nurglings, 2 bases of 3 seems to be the way to go. 17 points for the small friends of Nurgle. And then if we take 3 Plague Bear Scrollers or Brigands or Predators and or we spend let's say something around at least 600 points there. The Deathshroud and the Cultist, we can add 150 points more there. We can in this, and then there are 400 points more for flavor. The variations here would be if you add Mortarion, that takes 325 points out of this other, and then you have to probably think about the number of Plague Marines and the Plague Bear Scrollers and the Brigands and things like that. You can, of course, as I said, add more Plague Marines. You can add more Terminators. It would be interesting to see a list where we have also the big Deathshroud block with Lord of Ireland's or Lord of Contagion. And then you could always add more Plague Bear Scrollers, Brigands, and Predators in some combination there together with the Plague Marines. Now looking to Liam's 10th place Finnish World Championship list. It was previewed in another channel and I was looking at the list there. This list was 2,000 points, but it was before the point changes. So the list, when you look at it, it's very similar to the build-up of the competitive lists we have seen previously in this video. So we have 3 Biologus Purifier, of course, ever present, 2 Foul Blightspawn, and then Liam, he had 4 units of Plague Marines, 2 10-man squads. Each, the champion has the plasma gun with the heavy plague weapon. That's the best configuration right now when the weapons are free. We have 2 meltas and 2 spewers there, 1 blight launcher, and then 4 heavy weapons. And then the 2 smaller Plague Marine squads, they have basically the same configuration. The champion has the plasma and the heavy plague weapon. 1 melta, 1 spewer, and 2 heavy weapons here for 90 points. That's quite interesting because I was thinking for one of the squads, if you probably hold it back to hold some objective, you could have some more long-range weapon, but this works, of course, as well. He has 3 Rhinos for 225 points. Now there are 3 Plague Bear Scrollers and 3 Brigands, so here there is a lot of supportive shooting firepower from the Brigands and the Plague Bear Scrollers, and then two bases of Nurglings, like we saw on many of the other competitive lists. So this is let's say a list with 3 Rhinos that are able to deliver the hard-hitting buffed Plague Marines, and a very strong fire support base from both the Plague Bear Scrollers and the Brigands that kind of complement each other. The Plague Bear Scrollers with a mortar can use the mortar out of sight to kill, let's say, some of the enemy's action monkey units, and the Nurglings, of course, they can do actions on our behalf. This list is now, however, 2,135 points, if my math is correct, so then it wouldn't be possible to play exactly this list, but you could modify it quite easily. You could take 1 Plague Bear Scroller out. That would leave you 45 points to fill, and Tallyman could, for example, be added here to assist one of the squads, probably one that could stay behind and keep an objective to gain the CP. Or you could replace more of the Plague Bear Scrollers and add, let's say, Predator Destructors, but then you lose the mortar fire from the Plague Bear Scroller. So all in all, a very strong list. It has been hurt a little bit by the point increases, but still you could tune it and get something similar to all, like we saw some of the other top finish lists. And let's a little bit more analysis. The damage per point for the units typically used in this list that Liam used. So we have let's say the big squad of Plague Marine buffed by Biologus Putrefier and Foul Blightspawn, with the Melt as the Spewer, the Blight Launcher, etc. We can see it's 280 points for this blob, but it can do a lot. This is point corrected per 100 points, and without further buffs of contagions and -1 save, the baseline damage is quite high for both infantry and vehicles in 12-inch shooting and melee. Not so good, of course, at long-range shooting with this configuration of the Plague Marines, and it can be delivered fast with the Rhinos. The Plague Bear Scroller with the Entropy Cannon and the Slugger configuration, you can see some good damage against infantry, not so strong against the very tough vehicles, as we have analyzed before, and a bit expensive, a bit spicy now at 180 points. But the mortar can give you some shooting, especially now that tables are field of terrain. The mortar out of sight shooting is can be quite important. And the Brigand, very good against the vehicles per 100 points. From 12-inch range, especially where we have the Melta range for the Demon Breath Spear. Not as durable vehicle as the Plague Bear Scroller, but better shooting wise. Also good against infantry with the autocannon. But then interesting, I was just looking at the Predator Destructor based on this video. Just a combination here where we have the autocannon and the two heavy bolters on the sponson weapons. Some very high damage per versus infantry and terminators and things like that. Versus infantry, it has nice AP bonus versus infantry, so it could be an interesting combination to use some sort of more the Predator Destructor. So, reaching to the summary and final thoughts of this video, the Death Guard meta is in the era again of mechanized Plague Marines. At least 2 big squads of Plague Marines in Rhinos with strong support from the Virion. This is right now Biologus Putrefier and Foul Blightspawn. This is a strong combo in melee and shooting. They can do quite a lot. The Plague Bear Scrollers and the Brigands are then added for fire support. Nurglings seem to be ever present, but this build, let's say most of the units in this build have been increased, but still the builds can still continue in the same, let's say, with the same configuration more or less, and still seems to be the most competitive one. And I have to analyze the Predator Destructor soon. So this concludes the video. What do you think about the lists shown here? Did you like the analysis in this type of a bit different way to look at lists? And what do you think about your list? And yeah, as always, please post your questions and comments to this video so I can make some more videos. As I said, and always special thanks to my patrons and YouTube supporters. And yeah, thanks for everybody just commenting the YouTube videos and liking, and I enjoy all your comments, and it's really helpful for the channel to grow. So with these words, GeneralJannis signing out. Stay safe out there, and bye bye.